Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. This castle hath a pleasant seat. The air nimbly and sweetly recommends itself unto our gentle senses. These majestic trees serve as flying buttresses holding up the firmament. I look up and I feel small and insignificant. Yet I can feel the vast power and the energy of the universe. I like this place and would willingly waste my time in it. Care to join me? Cool. This is awkward. I don't have enough beer for everybody. Anybody know any jokes? Any good jokes? A knock-knock joke. Here's one. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Dwayne.
Dwayne who?
Dwayne the bathtub, I'm drowning! How about this one? Knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
There.
Move! See, we were carousing till the second cock, and drink is a great provoker of three things: nose painting, sleep, and urine. Lechery, it provokes and unprovokes, for it provokes a desire, but takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him and it mars him. It sets him on and takes him off. It persuades him and disheartens him, makes him stand to and not stand to. In conclusion, equivocates him in the sleep, and giving him the lie leaves him. You know, I have as late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercise, and indeed it goes so heavy with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory, this most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, why, it appears no other thing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty and form and moving, how majestic and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. Yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? And delights not me. You ever have one of those days? You think you've got it all figured out. Life is going along the way it should be. You've found your sense of purpose and you're out there and you're doing the thing. something happens, and you realize you don't know shit. Well, not long ago, I had one of those days. See, for over 25 years, I was a professor. I taught theater, acting, and Shakespeare. I loved what I did. It was so rewarding to watch students as they discovered new things about themselves, about the world, about acting, Shakespeare, and to see them apply it to their own work and find their voice as artists, and then go out into the world and do some really cool things. I felt, my life has meaning, a sense of purpose. Yes, this is it. Then one day I was sitting in my office, and I got the email. The one that says, report to the dean's office at 3 p.m. this afternoon for a mandatory meeting. Something you need to know about me is I have these anxiety issues. Leads to a lot of paranoia, self-doubt, this thing called imposter syndrome, and it's where these little voices come up and they say, "You don't belong here! You're a phony! You're a loser! You're gonna be discovered for the phony you are!" And they go on and on and on. Like any time you go into a public setting, if I go to some gathering or some faculty social, I'm just like, I don't know where to stand, I don't know who to talk to, because these voices are the only ones I can hear, and they're telling me that I'm doing everything wrong. That I'm going to be exposed before my peers. So I'm sitting here, I get an email like this, and whenever I get something from an authority figure, these voices start to come out, and they won't shut up. And even right now, thinking about it, I'm starting to get a little worked up about it. So I think the best course of action right now is another knock-knock joke. I think you're going to like this one. The first two were rough. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
William Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare. Who?
William Shakespeare, to see if it'll explode when he opens it. Oh, that fell flat. Do you know who invented the knock-knock joke? What's that? A piece of wood. Ah! This guy right here. He's on fabric here. I've seen him on wood. William Shakespeare invented the knock-knock joke. See if this sounds familiar. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Faith. It's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Ooh, come in time, have napkins enough about you. Here, you'll sweat for it. Oh, knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the other devil's name? Faith. There's an equivocator who could swear in both scales, against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet would not equivocate to heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator. I should have liked to have let in some of all the professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. Now, without saying the title, raise your hand if you know what that's from. Don't say it when you see it, because there's a curse. We'll call it the Scottish play. And the protagonist we'll call Mackers. Play of ambition, of treason, assassination, of guilt, of witchcraft, of supernatural elements imposing upon the natural world. When shall we three meet again? again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain, when the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. Air is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. See, when I stepped outside to walk across campus to the dean's office, oh, you could feel it in the air. You know that feeling you get when you walk outside and you know that there's a storm coming. The clouds are doing that churning thing. The leaves are rustling. You can smell it. It starts to get that green, that foul green color. This was the atmosphere I entered as I walked across campus into this ominous atmosphere to guide me on my journey. So I get to the administration building, go inside, walk down the hall, head up to the door. And I knocked. Knock, knock. Don't I get a who's there? Who indeed? You see, whenever I have a conversation with somebody about Shakespeare, this question of authorship comes up. Who wrote the plays of William Shakespeare? Trick question, is it who's in Grant's tomb? Shakespeare, of course, right? His name's right there on the folio. 7 years after he died, his colleagues get together. They said, yeah, we need to preserve this. So let's put it together. In 1623, they published the folio. It's gotta be. But there are these elitists who say that this country bumpkin, son of a glover, from Stratford-upon-Avon, couldn't grow up to be the greatest dramatist of the English language. That he didn't have the knowledge of the affairs of court, tutoring in history, education, Latin and Greek classics. There's no way that this simpleton is going to grow up to accomplish the great things that he did. That really starts to eat at me. You see, I used to say it didn't matter who wrote these plays. Somebody wrote them, they're great. End of story. But doesn't it matter? In the long run, doesn't it matter who creates a work of art? Isn't it important to know that, or to at least explore that, to examine the worldview of that creative force? What are they responding to? As he says in Hamlet, the purpose of playing is to hold, as it were, the mirror up to nature. I want to know who's holding up that mirror and what they're wanting me to see in it. So it does matter. At least the pursuit. It leads to some interesting answers about what's this mean at this moment? It could be this or it could be that. But then to say that this kid couldn't grow up to be Shakespeare, that really bothers me. And you know, they say that, oh, maybe it's Sir Francis Bacon, maybe the Earl of Oxford, that it has to be some nobleman who said, ooh, I want to write plays, but ooh, it's frowned upon, so ooh, I'll find, ooh, this guy here, and hey, would you put your names on these plays so that I can have this exercise and not feel bad about it or whatever? That's not very intriguing to me. I mean, the Christopher Marlowe theory holds a little water with me. It's at least interesting. At least there's some intrigue. We have this playwright who is also a spy, who then learns that there might be someone trying to kill me. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll fake my death, then I'll continue writing, and I'll get Willie here to be my front. Yeah. Interesting. Make for a good movie. But when you follow the principle of Occam's razor, it doesn't hold water with me. And plus there's this thing of, it's so elitist to think this way. And when you think of Shakespeare's missing years, from about the age of 21 to about 28, not really sure what happened during those years. But think about that time in a person's life. Isn't that about the time that young people go off and discover things about the world and maybe go to higher education, maybe they go to college and grad school? This is where we fumble around, we start to get interested in things about the world, and we start to say, hey, I want to learn more about this, and then we learn more about it, and we start to apply ourselves towards that, and we start to perfect things, and then we start to realize our potential. It's called education, folks. It's nothing revolutionary here. These people are saying that this could not have happened to Shakespeare. And if it did happen, which it probably did, it happened within the context of working with a theatrical company. And one thing I know from working in the theater and diving into characters and learning about the world of a play is you learn all sorts of things about history, language, all of these things that they said he wouldn't have had access to. You have to immerse yourself in that. And so to deny that this country bumpkin doesn't grow into this playwright is to deny the process of education. Is to say, oh, we're just set in a certain station in life and you're stuck there. And I don't buy that. So I'm at this door. And this is what's going through my head. I'm invited in. Asked to have a seat. I sit down. I don't take a sip of beer. And I'm informed that everything I value, the things that give my life purpose and meaning are no longer relevant. No longer needed, no longer wanted, no longer fiscally viable. And that the entire program has to be sunset. Sweet little word for a slow, painful death. You know what it's like to have your soul ripped out, thrown on the ground, stepped in, and twisted a little bit like that? To find out that everything that gave you meaning is no longer valid. Had to make room for more practical pursuits. You see, as this is happening, my friends, these little imposter syndrome demons, they come out and they say, "Ha! We told you, loser! They found out that you know nothing. You don't belong here. That's all I could hear as I felt smaller and smaller and more insignificant. And it was like, what's the point? I mean, can I make the argument? Yeah, there's lots of jobs out there right now. This was in the middle of the pandemic. Nobody was working. I was just empty. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Is a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long a life. You see, but that's not the skull moment, to be or not to be. I mean, we see it all the time. Judi Dench has even done it. Goes out there in the rough and, oh, to be or not to be. That's not the moment. The skull's at the graveside with the gravedigger. Oh, alas, poor Yorick. I knew him. Gonna make a change here. Alas, poor Shakespeare. I knew him, a fellow of infinite jests. A most excellent fancy. Bore me on his back 1,000 times, and now how abhorred in my imagination it is. Abhorred indeed. You see, every time I pick up this text, his complete works, every time I pick this up, every time I dive into a character or into one of the plays, I feel that Shakespeare, with his words, is lifting me up and putting them on his back. And once you know how to work the words and know the stops, you can go on wonderful, fantastic journeys. But now, at this moment, when I thought about that little moment with Yorick, all I could think of is now Shakespeare is on my back, and he's pissed. You've let me down! Ah, you rogue! Ah, you are an ass, sir! Dost thou not suspect my years? Dost thou not suspect my place? Oh, that he were here to write me down his ass. Loser! He unleashed a fury of insults on me. Because I had let him down, I had let myself down, I had let my art down. All of my mentors, I can remember the first time I felt the power of his language. I was a sophomore in high school in Miss Scalavis's English class. She had me memorize the piece from the Scottish play. Sir Mackers finds out that his wife is dead. She should have died hereafter. There would have been time for such a word. Tomorrow. 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 Creeps in this petty pace from day to day, the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage. Then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Oh, and as a high school sophomore, oh, how big and important and powerful I felt to be using that language to explore the inner life of a character facing this moment. And come on, this is high school. Everything is blown out of proportion. Everything, the Sturm and Drang, everything is so huge and dramatic. And here we are, full of sound and fury. And I was kind of a cynical kid, signifying nothing, and I love that. What a joke. Everything that we're so worked up for, and we get so riled up about. Never mind. In the big picture, as you look out at the cosmos, nothing. But as I sat in this office, I could see my career, my art, as being the sound and fury that had built up to nothing. So I staggered out of the office, made my way down the hallway of the administration building towards the entryway. I went outside, and that storm hit me in the face. Blow, winds, and crack your cheeks! Rage! Blow, you cataracts and hurricanes! Spout till you have drenched our steeples! Drown the cocks, you sulphurous and thought-executing fires! Vaunt, couriers of oak-cleaving thunderbolts! Singe my white head! And thou, O shaking thunder, strike flat the thick rotundity of the world! All germain spill at once that makes ungrateful man! That storm hit me and I hit back. I surged out of that building with the power of Shakespeare. That moment from Lear gave me strength. And I was ready to charge on. Once more under the breach, dear friends, once more. And I headed out into that storm and charged home 1.5 miles. When I got home, I was drenched, I was soaking wet. But I felt that I had been rejuvenated and ready to move forward with the next step. So I went inside and I dried myself off. This time, I did grab a beer, and I sat down to get some perspective. You see, I should have seen this coming. I mean, I knew it was coming. But, see, the thing about my imposter syndrome is that it sort of served as a double blind, so that whenever I would think that, oh, this is something that could be bad, I would say, no, that's just your paranoia. And so in dealing with that, I think sometimes I found myself blocking out some of the negative messages of this is the direction where things are heading. And I mean, come on. Anyone who's in this world knows that there has been an attack, a battle, a fight against the liberal arts, the humanities, the fine arts, theater, since the early 70s. We've been moving away from a higher education model that is focused on the liberal arts and creating lifelong learners, critical thinkers, problem solvers, to one where the mission is to create employees, servants, cogs in the machinery of capitalism, who don't question, they just do, go home, come back, and do again. And they're trained to do a very specific task. And once that is through, if they need to go on, well, we'll train them to do the next task. And because they're so tired from this work when they go home, we don't want them to think. And so the political system starts to look at it and say, hey, we can utilize this and say, no, you don't need to bother yourself with thinking about the bigger issues. You need time to focus on your job. Let us think about this and tell you what you need to think about this and say, okay, this group, you're going to go over here and think this way, and we can tell that you think this way, so you're going to be over here. Don't listen to them. They're only out to harm you. Don't listen to them. They're up to no good. And they split us. And they create this great divide. And we walk about like zombies in this wasteland stands between. I saw that Shakespeare was a part of this. I mean, even in liberal arts institutions, in English programs where he should be revered, no longer required in some of the most prestigious programs. Shakespeare, no longer required. We need to make room for new voices, which is important. But to just shove him out the door, he's not relevant enough. It takes too much thought. It's too complicated, too much cognitive dissonance. It's not clear enough. People, that world, that wasteland in the middle, that's all the nuance, the subtlety. That's the complicated thinking that we need and we need to develop more of. That moment where we gather together as an audience and communally experience this 2 hours traffic upon the stage. Our breathing starts to line up. Our heartbeats start to align, and they've done studies on this. We develop our empathy, our humanity, our commonality. We start to recognize ourselves in others. And I knew, as I thought and stewed about this, that my response to everything had to be theatrical. Now, there's one place where we think we have an example of Shakespeare's handwriting on a manuscript, where he is penning the lines of a character, and it's like, this is his handwriting. It's housed in the British Library, and it comes from a play that you're not going to find in the complete works. It was from a play that was written in the 1590s by Anthony Munday. And it was submitted for approval, but it was censored, because the play contained a scene where there was a riot, and there were concerns that theater goers might take that as a cue to go out and riot on their own. So, we can't have this produced. Now, after Queen Elizabeth's death in 1603 and James I ascends to the throne, Shakespeare and a couple of other playwrights go in and see if they can make some changes to this script to see if it can be produced. And that's where we have his handwriting. The play is Sir Thomas More. And the moment where we have Shakespeare's handwriting is More trying to quell the riot. Now, why are they rioting? They're rioting against immigrants, refugees, and they're worried that they're going to take their jobs, and they're going to increase crime and threaten their families, and bring disease and pestilence. They're saying, cast them out, remove these strangers, remove them, cast them out, remove them. And More replies, grant them removed, and grant that this your noise hath chid down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs and their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires, authority quite silenced by your brawl, and you in ruff of your opinion clothed, what had you got? I'll tell you. You had taught how insolence and strong hand should prevail, how order should be quelled, and by this pattern not one of you should live an aged man. For other ruffians, as their fancies rot, with self-same hand, self-reason, and self-right, would shark on you. And men, like ravenous fishes, would feed on one another. What do you to your souls in doing this, oh desperate as you are? Wash your foul minds with tears, and in those same hands that you like rebels lift against the peace, lift up for peace. And your unreverent knees, make them your feet to kneel to be forgiven. Tell me but this, what rebel captain, as mutinies are incident to his name, can still the rout? Who will obey a traitor? Or how can else that proclamation sound when there is no addition but a rebel to qualify a rebel? You'll put down strangers, kill them, cut their throats, possess their houses, and lead the majesty of law in line to slip him like a hound. Say now the king should banish you. Whither would you go? What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbor? Go you to France or Flanders? To any German province? To Spain or Portugal? Nay, anywhere that not adheres to England, why you must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that breaking out in hideous violence would not afford you an abode on earth? Whet their detested knives against your throats, spurn you like dogs? Or like as if God owed not, nor made not you? Or that the claimants were not all appropriate to their comforts, but chartered unto them? What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case, and this your mountainish inhumanity. Now, according to the UN, by the year 2050, more than 1.2 billion people will find themselves displaced by climate change or natural disasters, and that's to say nothing of geopolitical struggle, civil war, gang violence and intimidation. We have a mounting refugee problem on our hands. And we must find our humanity. From over 400 years ago, Shakespeare is telling us in this beautiful moment where he takes that mirror, he casts us, the audience, as the rioters. And we look at that mirror, and with those words, he reflects our mountainish inhumanity, our selfishness, our treatment of others, our treatment of the stranger, because we don't know them and we fear them. And it's Shakespeare's use of the metaphor of the stage, of this great wooden O. That's the final piece of evidence that I need to know that this is not some nobleman writing here. This is someone of the theater. This is someone who is vastly interested in human beings and how this world of the theater can be used. This was someone who sees that all the world is a stage and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. And the soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. Then the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age slips into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well worn a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again to childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. The last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness near oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Oh, the way Shakespeare takes that life of an actor and encompasses the life of a human being. And how many times do I ask myself, what scene is next? What role should I be playing in this play? And with his poetry, he sets it all out. Where he takes the madness of the world, the passion of love, and he's the poet that brings it all to life on stage. Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason never comprehends. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That is the madman, the lover, all as frantic sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. The poet's eye, in fine fancy rolling, doth glance from heaven to earth, and from earth to heaven, and His imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown. The poet's pen turns them to shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. Such tricks hath strong imagination that if it should but apprehend some joy, it comprehends some bringer of that joy. For in the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear. And that final image always gets me. Beautiful bush, full of life, yet in the shadow of night, in our uncertainty, our lack of knowledge, our fear turns that into something awful that can harm us, kill us. Just like those strangers, our lack of knowledge, we turned them into these monsters that can harm us. And they had plenty of bears running around in Southwark at this time when Shakespeare's plays were being performed at the Globe. They had this hideous entertainment that they had to compete with called bear baiting. Look it up, I'm not going to describe it now. It also brings to mind Shakespeare's most famous stage direction. Exit, pursued by a bear. This comes from The Winter's Tale, and at this moment in the play, Antigonus is bringing the child Perdita to leave it on the shores of Bohemia, either to be discovered and rescued and cared for, or to perish in the elements. And then Shakespeare gives the stage direction, exit, pursued by a bear. See, and this symbolizes Antigonus and the guilt that he is going to have to carry with him. It's going to pursue him, consume him. In this case, it's not going to be a long life. But how many of us have those things that we regret, that we feel guilty about, that consume us, pursue us? I feel myself pursued by the Shakespeare. So I vowed to take the shadows and not dwell on the shadows of uncertainty, but the shadows of magic, the shadows that we use like spirits to create characters and images. Now I can control the imposter syndrome demons. I can make them go away. And I felt rejuvenated. I said, yes, this is what I'll do. So I went to work on this, and now here I am. Can't work with an audience, but here I am in my backyard, on my porch, acting to the squirrels. Chattering. Now, this is the therapy moment of the play. So, one important thing that we can do is to take guidance from that moment where I felt rejuvenated and burst out into the storm and felt the power of Shakespeare moving me forward. So, what I want you to do now is think of something that you're dealing with right now, something that is causing you angst, or you're concerned about. Allow that to build up a little bit. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to blow that thing away. I'm going to count to 3, and then we're all going to blow it away. Are we ready?
Yeah.
We're ready. 1, 2, 3. Blow! Okay. Now I want want you to take something that is making you angry right now about the world, something that is really frustrating you, and I want you to throw your rage out on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Rage! Blow! Rage! Now, whenever you find yourself in a situation where the world feels like it is pressing down, find that release in your heart. Find that release and express it. Whether it is alone in a room or outside amongst the squirrels, allow for that release. Take those shadows of ignorance and fear that are used to be exploited and cause us to rise up against people we don't even know. Use it to find connection with your commonality with your fellow human beings. Take these shadows and use them in the positive sense of the characters on stage, the spirits of these characters. Our rebels now are ended. These, our actors, as I foretold you, were mere spirits and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the insubstantial fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the glorious palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit, shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with sea. So, if we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Judges, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. So, give me your hands if we be friends, and Shakespeare shall restore amends. Exit. Pursued by the guard.